I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, and I'm joined today, full table here to my left, Ben Syring, Custom Dyes. Across the table, marketeer Preston Lentfer, and engineer Ryan Damman. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. It's our pleasure.
It is indeed a pleasure because we're talking about something that we're all passionate about. We're recording this in August. You'll probably hear it in September. It's hunting season today, now. I mean, there are seasons that are going to be opening here in just a couple weeks.
Well, there's some big game seasons in Nebraska that are open right now. Archery antelope is going now.
Archery antelope, and then on the big game side with a rifle, you've got the Colorado early season, those high elevation tags, those are going to be opening up, and this is just an exciting time. And we're all shooters. That's what we do. We do it. We got a job in that field because that's what we like to do. And we, if I could speak for all of us, that's just what we're doing. So it's a unique opportunity every year. You get to this point, seasons are coming up, and we've spent all season, hunting, and then you got, Christmas, and you got Thanksgiving, and you've got kids programs, and you've got family events, and you got this, that, and the other thing, and then it's spring and summer, and you're mowing the lawn, and next thing you know, the hunting rifle has been sitting in the back of the safe, collecting dust, hasn't been massaged and manicured and played with. So now we're got hunting season coming up on us. I just want to bounce around and get some different perspective for what you guys do to take your rifle from, I threw it in the safe last year, to it's hunting season now. And, maybe you guys never threw it in the safe and you've been shooting it all year. Who knows? But let's just take this time to bounce around the table, throw it over to Ben, talk about what you do, what kind of hunting you've got coming up, and what you're going to do to prep your rifle for that hunt, and maybe how that compares to what you used to do before you were employed or your younger days, perhaps.
Well, younger days was pretty much non-existent. Dad would, I put it away and sighted in. By golly, it's still sighted in. And we proved him wrong since, because this is a big deal on the Syring homestead. We pick a date and we all meet together like on a Saturday. This is, my brother-in-laws, sisters, all the nieces and nephews, Dad, everybody comes. And I set up a range across the bean field. Well, it was beans last year, be corn this year. But we have 100-yard. I set up a pallet, and I set up 4 targets on that pallet so we can make sure that the 100-yard zeros are good for the young ones. And then I drive out randomly on the four-wheeler, drive a steel post, and I have a hang-on 8-inch gong I put on that, drive further, stick another one, and then I drive to the far corner. So like last year when we shot rifles, it was like 220, 333, and 437. And I just range find them. I've got a pair of range finders. But we start out, that's like a big day. Everybody loves it. We eat first, and it's almost like a picnic, and then we head to the bench. I try to set everything up, got my pickup there, and I've got the bench rest there for everybody that wants to use it. Everybody brings every rifle they want, and I pretty much clean out my safe because I like to have options. Am I going to take the 450 Bushmaster? Am I going to take the 6 Creed or the 7 Rem Mag?
The old 300 Win Mag?
Exactly. Bullet out. Yeah, the old minute a deer, and it still does it, too. Still does it. In fact, last year I hit that 437 yard target with it. I didn't think I could, just because when I tried to, I reload, obviously. I tried to do the whole seat the bullet out to the land strick, and the bullet came right out the neck of the case. That's how bad the throat shot out in it. But
well, that was one of your first rifles, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
I started at 11 years old hunting with that Winchester Model 70.
Thanks, Dad.
And I still kill deer with it today.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we sit down.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This is eastern side of Nebraska, not all the way to the east, but on the Platte River Valley, right?
Platte River, south of the Platte River, southeast, basically.
In what they call the Bohemian Alps.
Yeah, the Bohemian Alps, that's it. You nailed it.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
That's where my sister lives, out over there.
Sure.
But beautiful country, plenty of whitetail deer, and good bucks, too. They got places to hide. There's a lot more trees, standing trees left there than there is around here.
Yeah, it's really good area. No mule deer to speak of. I think when I was young I seen one, but lots of whitetail. But I personally have an antelope hunt coming up and a whitetail hunt, and normally we try to do this around Dad's birthday, so it becomes a birthday celebration as well.
Oh, that's cool.
His birthday's end of October, but my antelope hunt's early October, so I need to get ready, so we'll probably plan it sooner. But just everybody takes turns, I make sure the young ones get down there and shoot. Then we start with Dad, and then the more experienced hunters shoot. They shoot for zeros, and they're always looking back. I've got one of my nephews, Ray, was a little flinchy. So we did the whole, okay, you look away. All right, it's ready. And sometimes it would go off, and sometimes I didn't put any ammo in it.
Oh, yeah.
So we could work with that flinch, but he's far better now, far better. But
so you guys are running 100-yard zeros on your stuff, and those hills are a little more aggressive, is not the right word, but there's some topography in that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So shot distances, it's either going to be pretty close or pretty far. The middle distance stuff kind of
it's not there. Yeah, like for me, it's within 100, and then the next hill is 500, and then 800. But I don't go to 800 usually on whitetail. I figure I can close the gap because I'm hunting on private ground.
Sure.
But yeah, so we start out like that. And the funny story I was going to say about Dad never sighting his rifle, he grabbed his 270. Let me show you how it's done, kid. Sat down there, boom, at 100 yards. Dirt clear over here. I was like, what's going on? Boom, did it again, same dirt spot. I said, it's not on. Oh, it can't be. So we stuck a 4x8 piece of plywood up there, and I stuck the target up in the bottom right corner, and he was like 36 inches right and a whole bunch down. Dang near hit the bottom of that 4-foot target. And I says, see? Well, this Tasco has never failed me. Well, I'm just telling you it did.
Since
It made a
1977.
Tasco, I'm
You know, because this is important. You can do all the scoping, all the scouting. We've got pictures. Ryan and I have been sharing pictures of some bucks we're finding
trail
on
cams
some
and
mutual
stuff?
property. Yeah, we can do that all we want. But when the moment of truth comes and the deer you've been looking for presents itself, if you can't hit it, yeah. So we practice. And then, they all have their normal rifles, and then I pull out the custom rifle I have, and everybody gets to poke at the 437. I just call wind, and to see the kids' eyes light up.
Oh, yeah.
When they hear that kwong at that 10-inch gong at that distance, even Dad was surprised. I never thought you could hit anything that far.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, you can. I mean, it's just, of course, the 100 yards is for the kids that aren't dialing for dope, my buddies and some of my brothers that dial. We get the Kestrel out and we do everything because we've already done the Ford off.
Sure.
Excuse me. We've already got profiles set up in the Ford off, and we know with LabRadar our velocities. So unless something changes, the biggest challenge for me a lot of times, because you put those guns away, some of them never get taken out during the season, so they're back in there after sighting them, is finding all the ammo for them. And I need to do a better job of writing down the tablet. Let's see, did I shoot the 103s?
Oh, yeah. You just gotta,
which ammo did I shoot? Was it the handloads or was this bought and stuff? That's because then you get out there and you got to kind of start over. But
yeah,
it's a big deal, and it's a lot of fun. We enjoy it.
Yeah, that's really neat that you guys make such an event out of it, because for a lot of us in Nebraska and East and the Western hunters too, but whitetail hunting is such a borderline rite of passage, and you do it in groups of people, and usually there's a lot of family and really close friends, and it becomes such a thing you look forward to every year. And then to make that hunt last that much longer, you just get everybody together beforehand and zero rifles.
Kind of get too awesome times of the year.
Well, it is. It's really cool. When I was young, I couldn't wait till I turned 12. That shows my age, because now you can be 10 and hunt with another adult. And I've got 10-year-old nephews going. In fact, funny story, I have a niece that doesn't like to shoot but loves to hunt, wants to get a tag every year. And she was there last year and wanted to go play. I said, you got to hit that gong. I tell you what, you go out there at that 220-yard gong, and you hit that gong, you can go play. She sat down on the rifle, bang, now. Are you happy? And she walked away. So it's just funny. So, but yeah, I mean, we've seen problems. We've seen problems during this process, and it was a aha moment. Like, we need to get this fixed.
Yep.
So it was a good time.
That
Nice.
sounds like a good time. Ryan, across the table here, you are a very analytical guy. Yeah, I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. But Excel, note taking, everything's documented. All your hunts are documented, weather, all that kind of stuff. And I'm assuming that a lot that you have those same traits in how you prepare for a hunt. So it's now August. You've got a hunt next week.
Yep.
But then you've got the normal hunts that we do. Antelope, mule deer, and whatever that you got the rest of the year. Walk us through what Ryan Damman does to get a rifle set up.
So this year is actually kind of unique, but I'll backtrack to last year. Kind of leads into what I did this year and why. So I built this custom gun 2 years ago, shot a mule deer with it that first year. And then last year, I took this rifle out a bunch hunting, never fired a shot during a hunt. So it was in and out of the truck, in and out of tree stands, hiked around in the pack, but I never fired a shot during a hunt. Just opportunity never came up. So put that away, and I didn't get it out till a month ago, we'll say.
Yeah, late June, early July.
Yeah, it was this summer, getting ready for this upcoming antelope hunt because that's a unique situation where I'm going on a rifle hunt end of August, Labor Day weekend, basically. That
doesn't happen.
It's usually November. So I wanted to make sure that was ready to go for this antelope trip. So I had previously zeroed at 200 yards, did my normal thing, factory ammo, zeroed at 200 yards. I had my dope chart that I got taped to my scope. And I am analytical in a lot of things, but I'm probably not as analytical in the rifle setup for a hunting application as a lot of other guys in the office you guys. I'm not shooting 30 round groups at 300 yards and absolutely getting in, dialing in that tight, because I think the ranges I'm hunting at probably 600 yards max for shooting an animal.
Yeah.
I would imagine, though, that's a lot because usually around September 1st in Nebraska, you're in a stand with a stick and a string.
Yeah, I'm a big archery hunter, so I'm not even really thinking about gun hunting till November. Usually.
Right, yeah,
Sure.
so it is unique just in the time frame.
Yeah, I'm shooting a bow a lot all summer, so I mixed in this summer. I'm mixing in, I think, three different weekends now. Prioritize shooting a rifle outside, different shooting positions, realistic hunting scenarios. But so that's what I've been doing. I shot outside multiple times now, just to confirm my chart my elevation's good, and then basically I'm just more practice in shooting positions off sticks, off a tripod with a bag for rear support, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can hit an 8-inch plate at 400 yards sitting very consistently, I'm pretty confident in being successful in an antelope hunt. So that's basically what I've been doing up till now.
What caliber is your new rifle?
6.5 Creedmoor.
Yeah, we talked about this on a couple podcasts ago that, man, he put together a pretty slick nickel. I mean, it is short barrel, carbon fiber stock, custom action, fantastically applicable scope. I mean, it's just set up just perfect. It shoots great, and you're shooting factory precision hunter.
Yep.
Good light rifle carrying it in. Yeah.
And short.
Prior to that, I had my first quote-unquote custom. I just bought a Howa barreled action, put a Bartlein barrel on that, put it in was HS stock, and shot fine, shot good. Hand loaded for that, got 175 ELDXs going $3,000, but that rifle weighed 12 pounds, and I hoofed that thing in Wyoming, my first real out-of-state rifle hunt with elevation, because
we're here at 2,000 feet,
1,800 feet a second,
or 1,800 feet above sea level, rather.
Yeah, feet a second. Feet.
We're talking rifles, and we're talking sighting them in.
Yeah,
but yeah. So my priority was getting a light rifle I could use for everything. That most of the time I'm going to do is deer and antelope.
Well, you hunt a ton of public ground where it's walk-in access only, where you see the differences. Me and the light rifle, I hunt a lot of private ground. So I have easier access and closer spots to get to than hiking all the way in. So it's kind of neat to see those differences. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so here, my question for you, Ryan, you run factory precision hunter ammo. So that it's running consistent. That ammo is, that is match quality hunting ammunition. We've all, if any of us have shot a match, there's a good chance we've also shot a match with precision hunter ammo. I'm sure you have.
Yep.
I did this year.
You have. I know I have. It shoots really well. So velocity is consistent. Super low drag bullet. So you can spit those numbers out. You mentioned you've got on your objective lens, you've got a little dope chart out to 500. Are you using any other external means to get trajectory solutions in the field, or are you limiting yourself in distance such that that pre-printed dope chart's going to work?
I have the profile set up in a Kestrel.
Okay, just in case.
Just in case I do want to. I did check that last weekend too, just checking my elevation, verifying that program out to 1,000 yards. I'm never going to take a shot at an animal at that, but that boosts my confidence anywhere closer than that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have that Kestrel, and it's just me personally. I not shooting matches, not using it a lot for hunting. I like to have the tactile buttons.
Oh, sure.
Just check I got my 2 wind
directions or speeds rather.
2 wind speeds. I know I'm about 3 to 10. It's what today's looking like. It's 3 to 10 mile an hour. And then I can set that up so I don't have to constantly track that wind, get that set up for that morning or that afternoon. Check it a few times throughout the day, make sure my wind that I have set up on the Kestrel is accurate to what that day's conditions is. Then, now all I got to do is, if I'm not super confident in my dope chart I got taped on there, if it's 642 and maybe I want to have the perfect situation, I want to take that shot.
Yep.
All right, I'll dial that
Bust
up,
out
click it
the
in,
Kestrel.
bust out the Kestrel, and make sure I got elevation dialed appropriately.
So you're one custom rifle running factory ammo, so not playing around with different loads, bullets, and just kind of sticking to the precision hunter.
Yeah, and I loaded 143s. Oh, maybe I can get these a little faster. I need more velocity. I got to, and you really can't do any better than factory ammo. It's just really a waste of time with 6.5 Creedmoor trying to shoot it better. Okay, maybe I get 100 feet a second, but
does it really matter?
Does it really matter? Who cares?
Can you shoot the difference? Does it really matter downrange?
Yeah.
Dead is dead. It's interesting that you use the Kestrel. I don't know my big fingers. I use a Kestrel for my data, but cell phone for my forward
cell
off
phone
and my
app.
shooting.
Yeah, that
cell phone app
comes in pretty clutch. But it's good to have options.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also have the app, and I got it all set up on my phone too. So
redundancy.
Yep,
That's
redundancy
key.
there.
Yeah,
but
smart.
If I got gloves on that aren't necessarily working with the phone,
Makes sense.
those weather conditions or something. But
Sure. Yeah, 100%
just my preference.
Yep.
So you're setting it up. You said 100 yard zero, 200 yard zero.
200.
200 yard zero, and then you're running it out to range, making sure all your profiles line up, and then keeping it pretty simple with factory ammo.
Yep.
So kick this over to Preston. I know Preston is the antithesis of what you just said because this guy's got 800 different bullet choices and different powders and different primers and whatever. So, Preston, what's setting up a rifle look like for you today, and how does that compare to what you did growing up?
Well, I do want to caveat all that with last year. Since starting at Hornady 6 years ago, I shot my first animal with factory ammunition. But other than that, I've been hand loading it all.
Wow.
And I don't know. It's just something. It's something for me inside that makes me feel good when I can shoot something that I hand loaded.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Is it necessary? Absolutely not. But I like to do it.
Yep.
Consequently, I have leftover ammo from every year and every different rifle and every different cartridge.
That's my problem. Which one did I use last year?
Internal lot number so you can have a cabinet of.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like every story, I want to start at the beginning. And so when I was a kid, I became enamored with hunting after watching a VHS deer hunting video that my dad had got, and I was just like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
It was before I could hunt, but when I finally could, I'd had they got me a book. Somebody got me a book, or somebody had a book just called White-tailed Deer, and it had some co-authors. I remember one of the authors was Gary Clancy. And then I saw him later on in subsequent videos that I
That's
I
a really simple name,
cool.
so you know it's good. They're not trying to sell you on a gimmick. It's just called white-tailed deer. Like it.
Yeah. In that book, in the gear section, they had ballistic tables for the most common cartridges at the time. And we're probably talking circa 1998, maybe 99, something like that. When
I was already married 5 years. You were young.
Don't date yourself, buddy. But to me, to my eye, that ballistic chart said 270 Winchester is the king.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't beat it for deer hunting. It's the flattest thing
Oh, yeah.
out there at the time. So I was like, besides the 22-250, I didn't want to get that.
Was Jack O'Connor one of the authors too on this?
I don't think so. Not on this one.
Okay.
But to Walmart we go, and I got a Remington 710 and 270.
Yeah,
and I was
baby.
shooting 130 grain lead points. I don't even remember whose they were. But anyway, started out with that. The very first time I zeroed it, I was like, well, that ballistic chart said I need to zero it at 200 yards. Well, we struggled so badly at 100 shooting off of the tailgate of my dad's Ford F-250 that we just called it good there. Consequently, that gun never took an animal probably over 100 yards, maybe 120 was about it. So I started doing that, and really I didn't rifle hunt that much growing up after that. I think I had a 22-250 that I zeroed over a pack on a piece of cardboard in our cornfield, and then that was that. Since I've started working here.
Well, let's stop right there for a minute just to set the tone. We talked about where Ben's hunting. You're hunting
kind of southeastern
so
Nebraska.
still good trees, more pasture, less crop ground than what you're probably used to in Nebraska, in your neck of the woods, depending on where or how close to the river you are.
Yeah, where I live, there's definitely more crop ground than pasture, but where I hunt, there's more pasture than crop ground probably.
Yeah.
Where I hunt is almost darn near Kansas, half mile away.
Okay.
Is the closest. But yeah, I started working here. You talked me into getting a 6.5 Creedmoor, and I was like, "What's a 6.5 Creedmoor?" And I'm like, and then I was a tech, so I learned it all real quick. And I got a 6.5 Creedmoor. You gave me some suggestions on what to get, and I just got it.
Here's what I told him: 41.5 grains of H4350. The end. There's no load development after that. That just works. Yeah.
And I tried it all. I did the OCW and all that test, whatever. I think I ended up with 41.5 grains of H4350. But this is a Creedmoor, Bell & Carlson, big old stock on it. I think it weighed 12 pounds.
Yeah.
Maybe 13. I don't know.
But it
was
shot
heavy. It was heavy
like
barrel.
a house of fire.
That barrel shot I've since then changed my group shooting practices, but it shot the best group I've ever shot out of a factory barrel. But anyway, I did have Ford off at the time. That was before, we had a Hornady Kestrel or anything like that. Probably a zero range back then in 2016, 2017. And then nowadays, like I just did 2 guns a little bit ago for a friend, and sometimes I'll do that. And people want me to zero their guns, and I don't understand why, but I'll do it. I have a hard time saying no. But I did that, and I will do a zero angle. So I don't really know where I'm zeroed. Typically, it's high at 100. I don't really care particularly.
By a
how
little
much.
bit, about an inch high, half an inch high, somewhere in there.
Yep. As long as all the shots are going above 0, it just makes the calculation super easy. I will take the phone, and then I'll have it on the Kestrel as backup. 2 is 1, 1 is none. And that's really all there is to it.
You just set up a zero angle. So to give a little more insight to the listener, well, what Preston's talking about is in the FordOff app, which is the ballistics solver that we created here at Hornady. You have the option to run traditional zero range, which is what most people are familiar with. But we also give you the option to run zero angle. And without diving into a rabbit hole of zero angle, we'll blanket it by saying it captures the line of sight and the line of departure angle between your scope, your line of sight to the scope, and the departure angle of your barrel, and the environmental conditions you're shooting in, wind, speed, direction being critical, and then it correlates that to the impacts on paper. And you can the computer calculates that out to what that angle was, and then regardless of where you go in the world, if you encounter a different crosswind, a different elevation, different temperature, it accounts for that for your ballistic solution. And it is the best way to zero a rifle. For hunting distances, probably not super critical, but
Right.
it's a variable that you can control, so you control it. And you do that in the Ford Off app, and you have it set up on the Kestrel.
Yep. And I will say we will probably dive into a podcast about this in a later date.
100%.
Literally just zero angle.
Zero angle.
And that'll probably be on Quinlan's Corner.
Quinlan's Corner is what we're going to
Trademark.
call
Well,
it.
he's the one that taught me the zero angle, and since then, I determine whether I set up a scope for a zero or whether I set up zero angle on the optic.
Mhm.
Do I have the adjustable turrets with the right kind of, MOA or mill
Sure.
so that I can adjust them? Because to me, having a zero angle in that app doesn't do any good because I'm going to, give it the old Kentucky windage,
Mm-hmm.
like that 300 Win Mag I talked about. That's 3.5 high at 100. And that's what I shoot for. All of these rifles I talked about when we zeroed 100, that's not necessarily zero.
Right.
We shoot at a 100-yard target. Most of them are 2.5 high, because then I can tell the kids, all right, your range is to this. You can shoot to here.
Oh,
if they're
sure.
beyond that,
Then you start have to.
we have
hold
to
over.
start talking about that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know that at 3.5 inches high, I'm hair all the way to 350.
That's
with
called max point blank range.
And that's what I love.
Yep.
And
Keeps
so,
it simple for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, especially like you said, in those hills, those really choppy hills that you're hunting in. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get a shot opportunity from 20 to 200, and then after that, they're going to be out their way. So
Yeah, funny story. You remember were you around when I built that 338.6? Got her all tuned in.
I don't know.
I did the most preparation work I've ever done in any year, getting that so I was good to 400, 450, 500, knew my dopes, ready to go, sitting in the hunting blind opening morning, taking a sip of coffee. I hear a neighbor shoot. I'm like, what's going on? Overruns the hill, runs this buck. He stops right by the fence, 20 yards from my blind. All this preparation.
200 grain Hornady SST.
It's right.
Yeah.
Right through him. He didn't go anywhere, but all that prep, 20 yards.
Yeah. Well, that's best case scenario.
I will say a couple things I forgot. Ryan's been practicing this summer. Ben, you'll practice before the season.
Yep.
Growing up with that 270, I may check it for zero every other year.
Yeah.
And probably should do it every year. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of owe it to the animal. Hindsight, that was a little silly, but every time I did it, I bullseyed it at 100.
So did Dad for 10 years, and then
Right.
that
Until
last
he
year
didn't.
until he did.
until he didn't. Yep.
Yeah.
This year, I'm dialing more. I shot 4 matches this year, which is a little bit low. I had kids,
Mhm.
but so that's the way it's going to be. But shooting those matches, I feel like mid-range shots are pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, because I'll screw something up. Just watch. But
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're more prepared.
oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep. And then
When I was 14 years old and had that 270, 400 yards was just impossible.
not even in this. Yeah. Don't even.
And at
think
the
about it.
time, I was like, I looked at that chart and I'm like, well, that chart says I need to hold 40-some inches. And like through that scope, I know what 40-some
Oh, of
inches
course.
looks
Yeah,
like.
exactly.
Calibrated eyeball.
I'll never forget my first match. Moving target, I believe, was 500 yards. I don't remember how big it was, but it's like going back and forth.
Hopefully a full size IPSC.
And they started helping me, and I hit that thing 8 of 10 times.
Yep.
I surprised myself.
Mhm.
Would I ever try that at a moving animal at 500? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I hit that thing, whatever size target it was, 8 of 10 times. I was like, wow.
Yep.
So sometimes it's an eye opener, just like when I said with my nieces and nephews that all the way to that far corner of the bean field, 437, I think it was. And I just tell them, well, hold here, or here, take this rifle. It's ready.
Dial
just
it up.
hold it. Bang.
Yep.
And their eyes just light up how is that even possible?
Yeah. Well,
So it's a great thing.
with the right material and the right mechanics and a little bit of time and some know-how, it
Yeah.
can be really consistent. And that really is remarkable, and it becomes almost to the point of really nonchalant. Like we're pretty cavalier about it. If I'm out in a field by myself shooting steel, I'm not even really getting excited about shooting anything, because I know I can hit it and I know I can put a group on it. It's just how tight of a group are you going to shoot?
Exactly.
But you rewind the clock not that long ago, because sorry, Ben, but the other 3 of us are pretty young fellas. Not that long ago, it was impossible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm very similar to Preston and you as well, Ben. So growing up, I didn't have a 300 Win Mag or a 270. My dad wanted something a little more niche, something that had a little more cool factor. So my first rifle was a M77 Mark II 257 Roberts.
Very
57
nice.
Bob.
Yeah.
My uncle had a 257 Roberts Mauser sporterized.
Oh yeah,
Loved the trigger. I hate it today, but you pull and you pull
yeah.
and you pull and you pull, and finally it goes bang. He said, "Well, that's a surprise, ain't it?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, man."
Well, so my dad has an old Pacific Tool and Gauge trigger shoe that has set screws that you put on factory triggers. So it's got a nice shoe, factory trigger, never been touched up. So it's pretty heavy, and it never shot great. And this would have been about 1998 or so. This was back when Hornady had the light magnums. You get the light mag and the heavy mag ammo.
Yep.
So Hornady light mag, 117 grain stuff, and then we hand loaded for it, of course. Hornady 117 grain bullets. And every year I looked forward to it. It was usually on a weekend. It'd be me and Dad with a box, and Dad owned this gun shop way back in the day for a few years, and I'm guessing this is where he picked up these targets, but they were black and white targets, O-rings, and he had a stack of them. He probably still has a stack of them in the basement. I mean, it was forever. When we shot bows, we'd shoot at those, and he'd tape that to a cardboard box, and we'd go out to the meadow, it was called, 3 hay fields together. So in later years, we would stretch out and shoot. You could shoot out to like 1,200 yards in there. But at the time, we'd go out to the meadow, and pre-rangefinder days, Dad would step off 100 paces, put the box, and I'd lay down with an old sandbag, and we'd shoot it looking for 1.5 to 2 inches high at 100. And where we hunted and the way in which we hunted wasn't going to be much further of a shot than that. Didn't really clean barrels to say the least. No.
We should mention that.
Yeah. So every year,
Never ever.
So I hunted with a rifle primarily, did some, shot a lot of bows, but primarily rifle hunting was when I was legally able until high school. And then in college, we'd come back, and Nebraska had a late doe season, and the roommate and I that lived together in college, we ate deer meat. So I'd go home and shoot 2 does, and every year we'd put them in the freezer. And that 257 Roberts, I did shoot a doe at a distance that I'm unsure of with a Kentucky windage. In hindsight, likely in the 300, 350 yard range. But I did know that gun pretty well, and it shot great. But again, never cleaned the bore. Shot, roughly 5 to 10 shots before season, usually 2 weeks before season or a month before season, before it was too cold, because Nebraska rifle's always in November. And that's how it was. And, we did dabble shooting stuff far away, especially when we, the old man got a rangefinder, and he had a 308 Winchester, and it had a BDC scope. It was when the Nikon Monarch first came out, and he had some hot rod hand loads, and
With the circles in it.
oh
right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hitting a milk jug, and it was a long ways out, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. But again, the thought of ever being able to do that consistently,
Never
no
could
idea.
play.
But then you fast forward, and you start getting into shooting competitions, and now you're shooting matches at ranges that you're shooting groups at ranges that you never thought you'd be able to, and your proficiency level goes up. And so now, for me, when I get a rifle ready, I'm kind of in Preston's camp. I've got barrels spun off, I got scopes laying over here, actions that are not even in a stock, and I need to keep a very conscious effort to go, oh, okay, season's in 3 months away. I need to put a rifle together, because it wasn't long ago, 2019, I was taking my wife hunting for mule deer, and there were tags available still. And I was like, wow, I'll just get one just in case. So I grabbed a tag. I didn't have a gun put together. I'm leaving the next day. So,
wow.
So luckily, it was a Friday, and here at the office, I was able to, okay, I got this barrel. And so for me, whether it's a day before the hunt, which I haven't done ever since then, or 3 months before the hunt, which is more what I try to do, I kind of do the same thing. And the first thing I like to do is I will clean the bore, generally because, one, I usually put things away dirty, and I let them sit dirty, or I'll run a patch of oil down. If I know it's going to sit for a while, I'll take some Hornady One Shot, and I'll run some oil down there just for corrosion resistance, I suppose. So I'll clean them. And I've been a big fan of Vortec Eliminator and Wipeout. I don't know what you guys have been using. I know Preston's a Vortec Eliminator guy. So I typically will clean the bore with Vortec Eliminator. So I know I'm good. And I'm not scrubbing it down to bare steel. More of a maintenance cleaning. Just getting the loose stuff out of it, getting the big chunks. So I'll clean it with Vortec Eliminator usually. And I'll put the rifle together. And then for me, I got to foul the barrel. Obviously, you're not going to go hunting on a clean barrel. And so I'll usually put a 5 to 10 shot group down at 100 yards. And I'm looking for an impact somewhere between a half and an inch high at 100.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just like Preston said, that's because I'm a believer. I'm a devout believer in zero angle.
Zero angle.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you can't impact low at 100 yards.
No, you certainly can.
It's just easier.
Counterintuitive for me to be low at 100.
Yeah.
So I'm always going to set up a zero angle, but I will take those first 5 to 10 shots at 100. Now, sometimes I'll set up the zero angle at further distances, but typically I'm going to do a 100-yard target, and my impact will be somewhere, in that neighborhood, and then I'll set up the zero angle.
Sure.
I really like to do that, but I'm always messing around with factory ammo, different bullets, different powder. So I try to hone in on what I'm going to do well before season, or as soon, if it's an industry hunt or something, or if it's something that just pops up, try to get as much time as I possibly can to get familiar with what I'm going to run. Pick a bullet, pick a load, and pick it soon so I can spend more time getting familiar with it. That's, to me, super important. And I think it's part of, it's part of what we do here is we're always trying to innovate. And part of that is I want to see how different bullets perform in different scenarios and what offers me the best. How can I mess up and still accomplish my goal? And sometimes that's running a lighter bullet a little faster, so it's a little flatter, or running the heavier weight bullets with less drag, so I have less wind deflection or something like that. So I'm always playing around, but I try to isolate what I'm going to run for the hunt as soon as I can, get my zero angle set up, and then for me, it's all about validation. Ryan spoke about it. I know you're doing similar things. Getting redundancy. Preston stole one of my favorite sayings: 2 is 1, 1 is none, or you got a pair, you got a spare.
I don't think I stole that. I mean,
Well,
a lot of people
You just
say
used
that.
it in
I
this
was
before
gonna
he got
say
to.
it.
He was planning on it.
That's a military
Peter's
thing.
sake.
You hurt his feelings.
I guess.
I picked up from First Sergeant Del Valle used to say that.
Well, I picked it up from you. So.
Yeah, and but it's true.
You stole it.
Yeah.
So I like to have primary for me is cell phone board off. That is my primary. I use that for matches.
Mine as
I'm
well.
so comfortable with it. I trust it, and so for me, I know the cell phone. I have the Ford-off Kestrel. I've duplicated the profiles, but the Kestrel for me is more like if I want some environmentals. If I have to use it for dope, I will. But I primarily use the cell phone, and then I have laser range-finding binoculars as well. And if I'm going on a rifle hunt, be damned if I don't have a set of laser range-finding binoculars. I mean, it
Me
is
as
just
well.
the way. So what I like to do, typically I'm going to hand load, get my load picked, get the rifle cleaned, get everything zeroed, set up the zero angle. Now I'm confirming, is my real-world drop matching what Ford-Offs is telling me? And if it is, does my cell phone match my Kestrel? And can I get a range with my binoculars, put the dope in, call the wind, and make a good shot? And for me, that is huge. That's the confidence boost. That takes you just past the click, is when you've got redundancy and getting your dope, your rifle's shooting great. And then, you run it out to distances way further than you're planning on hunting. That's what I like to do. And then you just have confidence. Where long range now turns into mid range, and those mid range shots, that 400 or 500 yard shot, is not that difficult anymore. And I always thought it was cool growing up hunting with hand loads because it was like kind of cool. Well, now I like to hunt with hand loads because I have, and Preston and I have talked about this topic here just this afternoon, a little bit of like just some anal retentive traits. I'm sure we all share just different OCD-esque type things. And for me, like I know that there are 41.5 grains of powder in this cartridge
right.
case because
That's
I
right.
poured it in there, and I've got the best scale money can buy, and I'm everything's measured to the kernel, and I'm only loading 20 rounds, let's say, and I can guarantee you that to a man, every single one of those is right.
You ever try to split a kernel to try to make it red?
No.
Yeah, I learned that was the wrong thing to do, but I used to try that.
I used to have
You used to
tweezers.
use tweezers.
Yeah, and then
And I used them, and I was like, this is dumb.
But ultimately,
Well,
as you said, ultimately, everything we're talking about here today and everything that each one of us does, maybe differently or the same, is ultimately about confidence.
oh yeah,
So that we have the confidence in the rifle so that if we go out there and miss,
it's the
well,
nut behind the bolt.
it was the nut behind the
and
bolt.
Not to
period.
get on a soap. Don't pretend like I'm getting on a soapbox here or anything.
Soapbox
like that.
Preston.
But if you're going to shoot an animal, you should probably know where that bullet's going to go.
Oh yeah,
have
you
to
owe
have
it
the
to him.
confidence to do
Mr.
it.
Sight in your 270 every other year.
Well, that was a long time ago. That
Well,
was a,
Yeah, I
that
know.
was
I
another
know. I
name.
get it. I get it, though.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we all grow and evolve as hunters. And again, this is tangential, not to get on a soapbox, but there's something so cool about it, and it comes full circle, and it means so much more to hunt when you're sharing it with family or when it's a big hunt. You're doing something solo. There's something kind of romanticized about that too, where you're on public land, you're packed in ways or whatever. Like for whatever reason, it becomes so much more of an experience when you're super confident, you've practiced, you've done the hand loads, or you've got really good factory ammunition, everything's shooting good, and you harvest the animal, and it's all awesome. And for me, the older I get, and where I was going with this was, I enjoy the moments after the tag is notched and after the pictures are taken, and you put the new blade into the Havalon, and just processing the animal, getting the quarters off and getting the back straps out. To me, what that used to be something I had to do, and the more I do it, the more I become like, I take my time more, and honing that craft has almost gotten, as important or more important than preparing the rifle for the hunt.
Oh.
And it's all about, growing as a hunter. And when I'm 15, just like Preston, and you're shooting a cardboard box with a little target on it and it's good enough, I would never do that now. One, just because we know better, but two, because I feel like I owe it to the animal, and it becomes a lot more, I don't know.
Oh, dang, you're going to bring a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
For Pete's sake.
Well, it's like that. It really is. And
No, you're right, and we've talked about that before.
And for
Absolutely.
that's a big thing. And from early on, we had that. We German descent. We made sausage since I was knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah.
And I still to this day
hang it on
that
your
deer,
rearview mirror in the hot sun.
Yeah, take that day and we take a day, and prep all that deer, pork, whatever we have for wild game, and we make sausage. So I mean, that's a
Listener
big
side
deal.
note, Ben Syring is a professional sausage maker.
no, I do it.
You're really good. You
I
got all
wasn't-
the equipment. You take days to do it, multiple days.
I wasn't
days,
lying
so-
about the sausage in the rearview mirror thing.
No, I did that one time. That was a funny story. I make a traditional German dried. I'll tell the story real quick because I know we got to get going here.
No, this is great.
But it's a traditional German dried. So, you smoke it in the smokehouse for 4 days in the evenings.
Cold smoke.
Cold smoke, no heat. And then you dry it down for 14 to 21 days, okay? So we were going to go to this auction, and everybody loves that stuff. I can't keep my nephews out of it. The great thing is you freeze it, you pull it out of the freezer, and it's ready to eat because it's dried down. There was nothing in there to freeze. Anyway, so we're eating it on the way to the auction. I had one link left. I just said, well, let's go to this auction. It's kind of a sunny day. I grabbed it and flipped it over the rearview mirror, link of sausage hanging there. Go to this auction, come back 3 hours later, open the doors. It smells like a smokehouse in there. I look on my dash and I see grease drip. The sun had plumped that sausage back up and cooked it. We ate it. Chuck smelled good for a while, but I just thought that was crazy. But yeah, that's the truth. You weren't lying.
What type of sausage was that one called?
Just dried. We
Dried.
called it dried as a
No
kid.
kind of a first.
that sounds like
Wurst.
a
Well, you
hardtack.
can call it dried Wurst. I suppose it would a Landjäger would be a close, but we don't put near the spices. This was a recipe that Grandpa did a long time ago because back then you didn't have refrigeration. My great aunt would pack those in a crock, put lard, put another layer, lard, another layer. And when you wanted one, she had newspapers by the lard crack, lard crock. You just shoved your hand down in the lard till you felt one, ripped it out, used the newspaper to wipe it off. That softened the casing, peeled the casing, and there was always butter, bread, and jelly on the table. You ate that dried sausage with butter, bread, and jelly. Good stuff.
That sounds, like a cultural experience.
Well, look at me. I mean,
Well, look at me. I'm
I
hungry.
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, great stuff.
One more point before we wrap this up that I feel we have an obligation to say on the air. You're going to hear this in the month of September. Largely, the most of the country's rifle season are going to open up after this.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't prepared your rifle, go and do it. And if you don't have ammo for the upcoming hunt, I know it's tough. You owe it to yourself for the headache. Go find some now. Even if your hunt's not till December, go get the ammo you need or you think you're going to need and get it early, because there's nothing worse than scrambling.
Yep.
Right.
And if you're a reloader, make sure you have all your components and get it ready.
Yeah.
100%. I know we'll
100%.
probably get flack for that comment because there are just some cartridges that we can't seem to keep up on, even though we're making them around the clock. But
yeah,
if you can't find them in the store near you, look online. If you can't find them online, look in the store near you. They might have them.
Yeah.
You know,
it is pretty wild that, I work on the computer just like everybody else, and I'm always looking at our production schedule. And there are just some cartridges that never come off the production schedule. They're virtually always running
all the time.
And the remarkable part is when you go somewhere and you look for that cartridge on the shelf, it's not there. Or people reaching out to you saying they can't find it anywhere. And it's like, I've been watching the production schedule for the last year and a half, and we've been running 6.5 PRC constant, and people are still having trouble finding. That's just one example. But I know, you're right, Preston. We'll probably take some flack on that. But just even if you have thought about it, okay, no offense needed.
Don't make it an emergency.
Exactly.
If you can help it.
Yep. Because then you're going to be less prepared. And if you have to sacrifice, well, I normally shoot a 165 grain bullet, but all I could find was 150. You've got time to get that 150 grain option and get your rifle dialed in with it.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
Well, Seth, bring that Roberts in. Let's make it an Ackley.
You know what? So this is tangential again and completely unrelated to what we're talking about. But I've got two boys, and I've fantasized about, okay, what do you get them for their first rifle when they're old enough? And I've got a 1/4-inch hole in my heart, for the 257.
I hear you.
I've always have. So
if y'all didn't catch that, a 1/4 size hole, 257. Okay.
It's not quite a quarter. 250 is a quarter if we're going to be totally.
But it's
because the engineers are going to go off on you.
It's a corny pun, is what that is. Either way, so I was like, do you just go straight 257 Roberts? I got tons of brass, tons of ammo, obviously, and just keep the nostalgia going. But what I've often thought about is, gosh, 257 Ackley, 30-degree shoulder instead of 40. Do a 30-degree Ackley, be pretty cool. And then it's like, or I could do a 25 Creedmoor Wildcat for him. It'd be a Wildcat, and I'd have easier brass to get. It'd fit better in a short action. But they're getting a quarter bore regardless. They have no choice in the option. But, my 257 Roberts, I still have the rifle. It's got the same Very X2 2-8 by 36 loophole on there that Dad put on. It shoots okay. It shot the 87 grain spire points with IMR 4064. It shot that right at a minute. And I didn't discover that until the month that Hornady discontinued that bullet, because we had some reject bullets left on the shelf. I snatched up 100 of them, which was all that was there. They shot great. So I've got like 60 bullets of that and an IMR 4064 with an 87 grain spire.
You got to keep tradition. Let your boys shoot their first deer with your rifle, 25 bore, then build them a 25 bore.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. That's
right.
That was awesome. I appreciate you guys giving us, your insight and your background about what you guys do, and hopefully our listeners can pull out some things. One, don't wait. Two, test it out at distances that you don't plan on hunting, so that when you become proficient at those ranges, the ranges that you're actually going to hunt, you're even more proficient. Check out Hornady Fordoff. The zero angle feature is something that there's a lot of computational power there that if you're going on a hunt where you're going to go from right here at 2,000 feet and you got to hunt at 9,000 feet. That feature right there will save you some headache. So check that out. And one last thing, I think the podcast team and we've been talking about doing a Q&A episode. Hit us up with questions. So if you got questions that you want answered, hit us up at podcast@hornady.com with what you want answered. We'll sort through those. We'll get the right people on the podcast to answer them, and I think that'd be pretty cool. So, podcast@hornady.com for your questions, concerns, suggestions, what have you. Any closing remarks around the table?
I will throw this out there. If you're a new hunter, if you're a hunter that maybe hasn't got to this level yet, and I'm not saying that we're the ultimate hunters or anything, ethical police or anything like that. If you go buy a gun and a scope at a box store, and they say, we'll bore sight it for you for nothing, you still need to sight in your gun. What that means is they've pointed the barrel, and they've looked through the barrel at a target, or they've put a laser in the barrel, pointed in a direction, and they've matched the crosshairs to where the barrel is looking at. Yeah. That's it. It's still not sighted in.
That's a good point.
You need to at least fire it so you have the confidence.
Yep. Ryan, any last thoughts?
Nope, not really. We gotta maybe after our antelope deals, we'll have to catch up.
Yes, we will.
We didn't even talk about muzzleloader prep.
Yeah.
That's even more.
Yeah, it is.
And, well, let me just throw this in here real quick. Okay. Smokeless muzzleloader.
Listen
put
to
in the
this
same
guy.
amount of powder that I always have on it. It is sighted in right now. Keep that in mind. I have that one zeroed at 100 yards. The bullet is not in forward off. At 100 yards. I will dial it to 2 minutes of angle. That's the only scope I have a minute of angle. And I will walk around with it on 2 minutes of angle. It's kind of a little trick. But I'm just going to check that and make sure it's on because
your muzzleloader hunt for
takes
antelope,
a long
coming
time
right up.
to shoot.
That's
But
3 weeks.
Yep.
Getting excited.
4 weeks.
Yeah, for those of us that don't have smokeless muzzleloaders, we've got to use
mother loaders.
It's time.
Yeah, right. One last thing that I thought of that kind of relates to Ryan's situation. I said I'm usually got a scope over here, and I want to put this stock on there, and I'm swapping barrels. So when I put a gun together for a hunt, I'm physically screwing it together. Well, if you've got a rifle that you haven't, maybe recheck those torque specs on your scope rings, your scope base, your action screws. Just one last thing to make sure nothing's loose, especially on those Western style hunts where you're pounding on the sandhills or you're actually in the high country somewhere, and you might have to take a far shot. Loose or even at close range, those loose action screws, loose scope base, something will get you if you're not careful. So
absolutely,
one thing to keep in mind with that.
And use an inch-pound torque wrench so you don't over torque anything.
Yeah, you can break things right off. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And with that, everybody out there in podcast land, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you guys on the next one.